Good morning. Thank you for joining us live today. I'm Lori with London Drugs, and I'm very excited about this morning's conversation because we are going to be getting tips and tricks on how to capture a baby's special moments. I have Kate joining us today.
Hi.
Kate's a photographer and mom, and why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. I'm a professional photographer, and for a long time that's involved travel and nonprofit work and documentary work, but kind of all in the realm of portraiture. And then in 2016, I had a baby. She just turned 2. Her name is Finley. And I had this moment where I realized I had made this assumption that because I was a professional photographer, that taking pictures of Finley would be really easy for me. And I had a very rude awakening, and a number of rude awakenings about having a baby. I thought I'd get a lot more sleep and that she would like entertain herself for hours. And I thought photos would be easy. And I've been wrong on a lot of those accounts. And so I started kind of compiling a list in my mind of like, what would I tell other moms about taking pictures of their kids in like the simplest way possible? Because I also had a rude awakening about how fast they grow up and change and get bigger, especially with a newborn. But even as a toddler, like she wakes up and does things today that she didn't do yesterday. And something cute she did last week, like she's not doing anymore. Like it's amazing. And so that passing of time is like, oh, you just want it, if you can get like a slice of it, it feels so good. And yeah, so that's what I started doing, was like noting and talking to moms and figuring out what they needed to know. Because we have enough on our minds without getting too technical.
Very, very true. So we have a lot of great questions, and we're going to get to them in a moment, but I want to invite you to post any questions that you have now on our event page, and we will try our very best to get to them all this morning. So our first question is from Carly, who asks, why are my photos blurry?
This is a huge one, and I get asked this a lot, and there's a number of reasons, but something that fascinates me about working with moms and moms who want to take photos is we have unique obstacles that I think maybe a lot of people don't realize. But one of them is that we're indoors a lot. Whether it's wintertime or you have a newborn, or that's just where life happens, right, is inside our homes. And inside our homes tends to be dim. And without getting technical, there's a correlation there that if you're running out of light, then your photos are going to get blurry. And again, without getting technical, you just need to know that that's the relationship. And so I have a photo, I believe, that's coming up, and my answer to that problem is to get near a window. And what that's gonna do is add natural light from outside into your picture. That's gonna help keep it sharp. It's gonna also help keep their skin and everything like bright and healthy looking and as beautiful as it should look, versus deep inside our homes, not only we get blur, but it's just not as beautiful a light as when you come close to a window. In the picture that is showing or was showing is a photo of Finley, and she's like bright orange on the left because she's on my couch, like deep inside our house. She's like 6 days old. And that very same day, I moved her closer to a window and put her on a pillow. And the pictures, when you look at them, is like night and day. And all I really did, like, I cleaned her up a bit. I wrapped her in like a cute blanket. And went close to the window, but they're very simple shots, and they're very, very different. And by coming close to a window, her skin is brighter and healthier, and all the colors look correct, right? And of course, it's also super sharp. So that's like my biggest tip when you're working in your house is like, go near a window. And something I might get around to talking about later is like, make your life happen near windows if you can. When you're like arranging your baby's room, it's like I try to put Finley's toys under the window so that we can be near there so that I can have natural light to work with if she does something super cute.
Okay, great tip. Our next question is from Robin. Why does everything look kind of yellowy orange?
Yeah, this is another byproduct usually of working indoors. And so there's man-made light and there's natural light. And usually the light bulbs that are in our lamps or overhead, it's man-made and they tend to give off like an orange color. And light really runs from like orange to blue in photography. Blue would be like when you go in a change room and there's like fluorescent blue lights overhead and you like suddenly look like a monster. And the other end of that is orange. And so I have some examples up on the screen called bad light. And it just shows some of what that can look like. So it can look like blurry or dim, it can look orange and overcast, or it could look also a bad light would be like harsh and shadowy. But to answer the question about yellowy orange, you rectify that again by getting close to a window and getting closer to natural light and away from indoor light. Okay. That's the best way to fix that problem. If you're outside, I just want to add, and everything's still looking like yellowy orange, that could be something called white balance in your camera is stuck on the setting that's like emphasizing the orange colors in the photo. So whatever your camera is, or your phone, you look for something called WB, or white balance, and put that to auto. It might be stuck on something called shade or clouds or sunset, and it's trying to like enhance the orange colors. Okay. But inside, it's get close to a window. Again, that's gonna be like your best friend.
Great. If you're just joining us now, I'm Lori with London Drugs, and this is Kate, our mom photographer, and we're talking today about tips and tricks for capturing baby special moments. Our next question is from Steph, and she wants more information about light. What time of day is light usually best for photos, and where should baby be in relation to the light?
Those are great questions. You might tell from like the last 3 questions that light is like a huge learning curve with photography. So the more you can like reserve a little brain space as a new mom or a busy mom to think about the light in your pictures, that's gonna be like the #1 thing that changes your photos. And that's camera or cell phone pictures, which we might get to talk about later, but is changing the light. So back to that question, there are some really go-to types of light that are great. So I've covered window light, and I would emphasize that again. And it depends if your house faces like north or south, if it's like a sunny day or a dark day, but the closer you can get to windows and work with that, the better. As to where to stand, it would be like parallel to your child, or maybe the window is behind you and your child is playing or sitting in front of you. And that window light's kind of coming over your shoulder onto them. The main thing is you want to be lighting up their face. Right? That's like, tends to be, as like humans, what we want to recognize is like people's faces. Unless, you can get obviously creative and break that rule, but for the most part, that's the goal as far as where to stand. And a couple other types of good light that can be easy, there's many kinds, is overcast days. So here in Vancouver, we get a lot of those. I'm not sure, where people are tuning in from, but anytime there's like a big overcast day, like that's the day to go outside and play. Because you almost can't screw it up. Like, it's super soft, it's very flattering. It's gonna soften any shadows and anything like that.
And I guess reduces the child from squinting.
Exactly, yeah. So in the former image that I shared, one of the examples was harsh light, and your kid's gonna like recoil and get these like jagged shadows that we really don't want. So overcast days, they're not gonna do that. And they're gonna be bright-eyed and playing and whatever. It's gonna look really great, and that's a great day to just play with your camera. And the last type of light that I would recommend is bright shade. So for moms, like sometimes we can't help, we're gonna get our kids outside to play on a sunny day. The easiest way to get a nice picture on a sunny day is to move into what I call bright shade, but just shade, if it's a sunny day, it's gonna be bright. And even, so not like speckled, so that you're getting little hot spots, kind of what I call them, all over their face. If you get into even shade and take the pictures in there, then again, that's going to be really flattering, just like an overcast day. The skin will look like even and bright, and your camera won't be so confused by the brights and darks. That tends to be a big problem with when you're mixing like super sunny day and like super dark shadows. Your camera kind of has to pick one or the other to work with. And then we start not getting the results we want, and that's very frustrating. So window light, overcast days, and shade. I'd say those are like the best entry-level ways to work with light. And if I can, a cool like homework assignment is put your kid by a window and then photograph them from like all 4 sides. And you'll see how the light changes, and you'll start to understand that relationship.
Okay, yeah. That's great.
Awesome.
Our next question is from Tammy. What happens if the child moves and won't cooperate? I'm guessing that's a fairly common question.
That's a very common question, yeah. So not the newborn phase is short, where they'll just sleep all day, and if you're having a newborn, that is a great time to practice because they'll sleep and you can move them around and put them by a window and they'll stay there because they can't crawl away yet. When they start moving, and I'm entering this, my daughter just turned 2. Number one advice I give is recruit a helper. So a favorite aunt or uncle or your partner or a sibling, anyone to kind of hold their attention somewhere near or around the camera, if that's what you want, is them looking up at the camera. Because you're gonna be busy enough trying to take the picture. You can do both. It'd be something like dangling a toy over the camera while you work. But if you can recruit a helper, it takes so much pressure off of you to play both roles. Another thing that I'm learning that can be really good is to distract them with like an activity. So I've kind of learned to let go of this idea that my baby needs to sit there and like say cheese and look straight at the camera. It might be a long time for me before that happens. So instead, I have her do activities. And I'm not sure if an image is coming up, but some examples anyway would be like, I point out the flowers to her. And I have her go and like, Finley, can you smell them? What color is it? Can you touch them? Can you put it up to your nose and take a picture of her with like her face in the flowers? And I also really think that everyday life at home is beautiful. And it might be really simple. It might not be like Pinterest perfect. But if they're playing with trains or, Legos or whatever, they're coloring and they're doing everyday life, if you can get that near a window so that you have nice light. I think kids interacting with the world around them are equally beautiful pictures as any kind of like studio perfect shot where they're set up or props or anything like that. And so I have like Finley's dad reading her a book in the rocking chair, right? And they don't even know I'm there. And the fact that they don't know I'm there is actually part of what I think makes it so beautiful. And a number of other ways you can just like distract them. I'm not above bribery. Now that she's 2 and she can understand bribery, I'm not above like maybe having a lollipop. Like, if you sit still for mommy for 1 second, you can have a treat. And she's starting to understand that. And I don't want to have like a forever correlation between treats
Photos
and
and
saving
treats.
cheese. Yeah. But sometimes if it's like a really special occasion, like she just turned 2, and I want one really great portrait of her turning 2, then I might definitely resort to that. I've also definitely held like Netflix over my phone when I really, really, really want her to look up. But for the most part, I feel like distracting them with an activity, especially if you can kind of direct that towards something that happens to also be beautiful, like flowers, trees, the ocean. Like, baby, can you pick up some rocks? And they're just like cupping their hand, whatever it is. Then they're more likely to participate. Repeatedly, like sitting them down against a wall because you have this one idea for a shot, then that can get really difficult. Which brings to mind another tip: work around their happiest time of day, right? Like, if it's almost nap time, it's not the time to say, like,
No.
You're gonna sit still for a second. I'm gonna like pin you in this corner to try to get this one picture I have in mind. It's always okay. Like, Finley, she turned 2, I mentioned like a million times yet, because she turned 2. I don't know if you know. That photo that I'm gonna take of her, or didn't happen the day she turned 2. Like, enough was going on. She was already like overwhelmed with like family and cake and cupcakes. But like, we sat down a few days later on a calmer day by the fence when she seemed up to the task and took what I wanted to take of like a nice portrait. So all of that stuff. The other few tips on this subject with moving toddlers: your camera may have an option for continuous focus, in that it'll try to like chase them around the scene as they move. It's not 100% accurate. Kids can outsmart cameras, but it is something to like look into and maybe play around with when there's no pressure, when you don't necessarily have like one photo in mind or it has to be done today. But if you can find that setting or Google it with your camera model and learn how to use that, then that can definitely help you capture them as they're running. Also, them running like across a field in front of you, much easier to follow along than them running towards you.
Okay.
When your child's running towards you, that's a very like advanced thing to want to photograph, is something coming towards your camera without getting technical. So this way, like across a field, run to dad, run to the swings, and following them that way, that's way more likely you'll get a sharp photo than them running straight at you. The last thing about your camera is it probably, or your phone, has rapid fire. And so if I like hold down my shutter, it's not on right now, but if I did, it would continue to take pictures, right? And so maybe she's not looking up, but I sense that it's coming soon. I might take 60 pictures, and in that she might glance up at me, and that's
you
the
captured
photo.
that moment.
Yeah, and same on phones. I think if you hold your thumb down on the shutter button, it depends on your phone model, but it'll continuously take pictures. You end up with a lot of extra pictures, but if you're looking for that one moment they look up at the camera or jump or something, right? That's definitely something you want to have activated.
Great tip. And what I like is that the tips that you're giving are in the moment, like natural, what we would do to, or what the child would be doing. Oh, they're interested in rocks. They're going to scoop up rocks. It's like a natural thing. So it's not that it's posed or forced. And you can capture those special moments.
Definitely. I think if you have like a photo of mine your heart is set on, that's like posed, maybe it's from Pinterest, maybe it's from Instagram, maybe that's the time you like invest in a professional photographer. Or give yourself like a lot of different attempts to try to get that one. But the everyday life, the unposed stuff, it is beautiful. And this is your life, and it's still worth remembering. And like, maybe our cell phones are what we have on us all the time. And so that's okay to just do the everyday. And I want to add that it's like, I don't know how to say it. It's like saying that your story is worth remembering, as it is. And it's not picture perfect, because like being a mom is not picture perfect. And we have so much on our plates all the time to try to make that one particular photo happen.
Right, for sure.
So you gotta like take the pressure off yourself just a little bit. You're like, this is beautiful too. Oh, last tip on this subject, and then I think we have more questions.
Yes.
Their faces don't have to be in it. Some people don't realize this, but like, if your child is scooping up rocks, like a photo of their hands holding up rocks, and like if going to the beach is something that's important to them and your family, that's still a beautiful photograph. That's still their little hands, and they're learning to love the beach and exploring their little world. That's so equally valid as them sitting and saying cheese on the beach, right?
Yeah.
So if they don't want to look, don't make them look. I think that's my bottom line.
Great. And for those of you just joining us, my name is Lori. I'm with London Drugs, and this is Kate, and she's our mom photographer. And we're talking about tips and tricks for how to capture baby special moments today. Our next question is from Steph. Could you recommend a good digital camera for a newbie photographer?
Yeah, if you don't already own one, or the one you have you don't like, which is valid, because sometimes we have the best of intentions. We go out and buy a package, and either it's too much or maybe it's too big. Who knows? For one reason you're not using it. The best camera for you is the one you're going to take with you, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the big thing. But if you were going to invest in something new, then I'd go smaller for a mom. Something that's going to fit into a diaper bag, a purse.
Yep.
If you're not going to take it with you, you're not going to take photos with it. Like, that's the big thing. And if you love your DSLR and like a kit and you do take it with you, then that's valid. But if you find a whole DSLR set cumbersome, then going smaller like mirrorless or an advanced point and shoot is totally okay, because the pictures you take with the camera you bring are going to be better than not taking pictures with the camera you don't like to take with you. Personally, I use the Sony mirrorless line. This is the A6000, and it's very small, but it's super powerful if I need it to be, and it has a ton of functions I find useful. It has that continuous focus I mentioned. It tries to like track Finley as she runs around. It has the rapid fire that I mentioned. It's something like 11 frames in a second. Like, I can get that split second that she's looking up at me or doing the cute thing she's doing. Mirrorless cameras, any of them, have electronic viewfinders, and so, like on your cell phone, if you take a picture, you see, essentially what you see is the picture you're gonna get once you hit the shutter. So the exposure doesn't change. But if you look through a DSLR, you're just looking through glass, and you have to take the picture and see your result after. With mirrorless, it's more like a smartphone. When you look through the viewfinder, it is pretty much the exact picture you're gonna get once you hit it.
Okay.
You're not looking through just glass, you're seeing the electronic version, meaning, yeah, it's not gonna be surprisingly brighter or darker. You're gonna get what you see through the camera. And also looking into an eyepiece, an electronic viewfinder, in brighter sunny conditions, you can see really, really clearly. So I found all these to be really useful, but number one, as far as being a mom and taking this around, because I have bigger and more professional gear, that doesn't help me much when it comes to Finley, because I'm not gonna pack that to the park, and maybe a couple times a year I'll pack it out to like the beach or a pretty hike. But this camera comes with me everywhere.
Okay. And Steph also asks, are there any lenses that are helpful to have?
Yeah, the question about like why my photos are blurry. Kit lenses tend to not be well suited to working in low light or indoor light. Kit lenses being like the lens that usually comes in some kind of camera bundle.
Okay.
And again, without getting technical, they're built to cover lots of things, but low light isn't one of them. And so if you're gonna work indoors and if you wanna take portraits, then you wanna go into like a camera counter and ask for a portrait lens and look at your options depending on the make of your camera. This is a 35mm portrait lens. Another very popular one is 50mm. And they do two things. They work well in low light, which is definitely helpful. And they soften the background for portraits, which tends to be an effect that a lot of moms are going after. So that would be definitely one I recommend if you're after portraits. If you're after like action or big scenes, a lens that gives you like a wide viewpoint, like you could get the whole soccer field maybe, but we'll let you zoom in to try to get something more specific, a versatile lens, then that'll help you cover a breadth of different situations. So it depends a little bit on your goals for your photos with your kid, but those would be my two good options.
And is it important to have different lenses, or can your, like for your average or new photographer just getting in?
No, I don't think it's important to have a ton of different lenses. I think I call it the gear chase. It's like there's always something better once you start understanding lenses and the different things they offer. It always seems like some other lens is gonna do the job better. Like, no, if you work with good light and you work on how you're taking your pictures, then the gear really truly is secondary. But if you're loving it, you've been doing it for a little while, and you want to do portraits, then a portrait lens is a great investment. And maybe later down the road, if your kid gets into sports or action, you're going to want to go talk to someone about a more versatile lens, meaning you can get the whole scene and you can zoom in, which kit lenses can do to an extent. And it's the great thing about going in and talking to someone in a store, is you can kind of describe what it is you're looking for and your budget, and they can let you know what your options are.
Great. And our next question from Tony kind of goes to a different kind of camera. And that is, she's asking for top tips for improving taking pictures with a cell phone.
Oh, yeah, because there's cell phones, but we always have with us, and me as well. I do have some tips for that. So it would begin back with light. It is really important to work with good light, and it doesn't matter what kind of camera. So if you take the time to, like, remember I said, like, go in a 360 around your kids, see how the light changes, you can do that with your cell phone too, and you'll start to understand how the light changes and what's going to be best. If your subject, not to be too technical, but if your kid's well lit up in nice, soft, bright light, then it's going to be a nice picture no matter which type of technology you're using. But there's other things you can think about. One is the rapid fire I mentioned. So you can try to get that exact moment. Another would be to like get closer, because we tend to lift our smartphones and just like kind of angle them down and get what we get. But if you can actually either get on their level, which tends to be a great thing to do with kids when they're having tantrums and when you're taking photos, is get down on their level. It'll just kind of help naturally balance the scene rather than, it feels just kind of snapshotty to like this slight downward angle from the adult standing to where the kid is sitting.
Right.
So if you get down on their level, that's going to immediately help. And then if you get a little closer, it implies the intimacy maybe of that it's your kid. And so again, if you make some of these choices, whether it's your smartphone or your camera, then that's going to really enhance the result. But a couple other things specifically about cell phones. You want a quick launch so that you can get to it quickly. You can also go into the App Store, and there's like a few other camera apps that might offer you more options to take control of your images.
Okay.
There's Camera Awesome, there's Camera Plus, there's lots of them. Just read the reviews, try a few out, see if that helps you get a little more control of the images you're taking.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that's the main stuff. Or those are like without going too far into the cameras, into smartphone cameras. Except I thought of one more. Editing. So after you take a photo on your smartphone, editing it in a little app might help bring it to life a bit more. I recommend one called Snapseed, and it's free. And it's very powerful to help you enhance the picture a bit, but you don't want it to look unnatural. So you want to maybe play with the contrast, maybe crop it a bit if you didn't get close enough. And that can really help bring that photo to life. Which brings to my one final thing. Don't zoom on your smartphone. That is not a proper zoom. Our cameras, our smartphones are like paper thin, so it's clearly not a real zoom. So if you zoom in on your smartphone, you're losing tons and tons of quality. Instead, go back to the other tip. Get closer if you need to, or crop later. But cropping after the fact in the little editing app is going to preserve a lot more quality than zooming. If you've ever zoomed in on your phone and by the time you get to the maximum, it's like super pixelated.
Yeah.
Looks like it's from like 1997 or something. It's not even like a usable picture at that point. So stay wide, get closer if you can, and if you're as close as you can get and they're doing something, they're still a bit further away, then crop.
Okay. Great tips. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Lori with London Drugs, and this is Kate, mom photographer, and we are talking about tips and tricks for how to capture baby's special moments today. We have another question from Lisa. What can I do with all my photos?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually just was looking at my own catalog of images. I have 10,050 photos of Finley in 2 years, and that doesn't include my cell phone. One thing I really want to press to moms, because these are really precious photos, whether or not they're as good as you hoped, it's still your family and your life and this baby that you love so much, is back them up. So that could be using Google Photos, I believe, allows free, unlimited cell phone backups, or maybe you use Dropbox or whatever. Or you get it onto 2 different computers or 2 different hard drives, but you want your photos in 2 places. As big as SD cards get now in cameras, you could go like 6 months with all your pictures on one little card, and that card could fail, or your camera could get stolen, or if they're on your phone, you can lose your phone. So you definitely want to make sure your images are in 2 spots. And I guess the other thing I'd say is like print them, because we're taking all these images, but if they just live in a folder on your desktop, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like I don't casually sit down and like relive 10,050 photos of Finley. But if I print a few, 1, I get to like relive that moment. 2, I think it's kind of like a lost art a little bit, that maybe it's not lost, but like I personally am not good enough at doing this, where I print my pictures and like I hold them and I look at them and I like reconnect with what they were about and what she was like at that age. We hang them up in our home, and like our friends that come over, we can be like, this was what she was like when she was 1.5, and it just helps keep those moments alive a little bit. And you don't want that to get lost.
And yeah. I agree, and we are fortunate today to have Megan from one of our Photolabs here, and she's going to share some options and talk about some options of what we can do with our photos.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I've kind of broken up what we can do for you into 3 categories. The number one thing I want to stress, I know you said about editing apps. If you are not comfortable using them, we do that automatically, like on every single print. Contrast, density, saturation, all that stuff, we'll look after it for you. It's also available on the website. You can click and do your own editing through the website. So if you want to do it through there, that's fine too. The number one way is just to print regular straight up 4x6 prints or enlargements to put up on your wall at home. We are still seeing a lot of prints, despite people like not wanting to do it or finding it difficult. It's very easy to do. You can do it from your app on, we have like a London Drugs Photolab app on your cell phone, or you can do it from the desktop computer. And another thing that we're doing is these photo books. Like people are digital scrapbooking now. So you can have your photos in an actual handheld book with templates on there. You can do text, you can do different fonts and put your photos in the little sections. I actually personally used this one to tell my husband that we were expecting baby number 3. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. He wasn't all that surprised by the end of it, but it worked out pretty well. The second kind of category is gifting. So we can put your photo on a keychain. We can put your photo on a mug. There's all sorts of different things. I mean, people give these for birthdays. They give them for Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas. But they also give them like when you're returning to work from maternity leave and you just need that little reminder of your baby to be with you. The third category is like artwork that you want to put on your wall. Like if you want to make it something, it's a really special shot or really good memory. We have lots of options for that sort of thing. My favorite is the canvas gallery wrap. This is a classic. Like lots of people really love these. They feel great, they look great. You can get UV protectant coating to go on it. So if you wanted to put this in your bathroom and you don't want it to get like damaged by the moisture, we can put that on there for you. I love these because ours are so sturdy. Like we stretch them quite tight, and they have really like strong. Like if you feel it, it's weighty, right? This is my son.
I love that he's drooling.
Yeah, you know, I wish you had been around when I had my first son because I knew nothing about photography, and this was just a really lucky shot that I got close to the window, and it was all taken with stuff I had in my house. Like this is a towel, and I had a blanket behind him, and we were just goofing around on the floor, right?
No,
it was
like
just fine.
almost professional.
Thank you. And then if you want to go like a little more modern, we now do them on aluminum as well. These things are like amazing. Like just look at the color on it. It's so vibrant.
The grains are so
one thing I would mention, if you have like an image from your phone or something that's pixelated, you don't want to go with this. It takes every little piece of detail and you can see everything on here. Like it will show, it's so clear and so vibrant, you will see everything. Every flaw will be like highlighted. If you want to go with the canvas, it tends to hide the flaws a lot better because the fabric is like textured. So you're not going to see like the pixelation quite as much. And we can do some fun things with filters and stuff too on Photoshop that will kind of hide it a little bit. If you have like a shot that you really love and you want to print it, we can do that for you as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. So there's so many things. We have brag books, right? Like there's little tiny photo books that you can get, and they fit in your purse, and you can get like mouse pads and aprons and all sorts of things. Like if you can think about it, we can put your picture on it, pretty much.
I made one of like the pregnancy.
Yeah.
And Finley asks for it like every day. She calls it the Mummy Daddy book. And it's the bump getting bigger. And just like, and it was mostly cell phone pictures, right? Because I was just taking selfies in a mirror, like of the bump getting bigger. And like she asks for it all the time. It's practically a bedtime book at this point.
It was so bizarre, actually. My son was, we looked through on my phone all these pictures of him for his birthday. I was like, this is what you were like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And he's like, can you print these for me? I'm like, do you know who you're talking to? Yes, I can print these for you. No problem at all.
That's
so
awesome.
I guess I'm going to be doing that this week.
They just love to see themselves and see what it was like before them and then after they joined the family. So it's great to be able to capture those moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you, ladies, for joining me this morning, and thank you for joining me. And if you have any other questions, we will be monitoring the posts in the next little bit, so feel free to post your questions, and we will answer all the questions. And I also want to invite you to visit londondrugs.com/ldexperts, and there you can sign up for an appointment with one of our experts in the store, and they can work with you to to pick the right camera if that's what you're interested in, or to capture how to capture those moments and get them into print.
Yeah.
So I invite you to do that. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you again soon.